Cyclops, Havok, and a third brother they forgot about, hidden from the X-Men, manipulated by Xavier, and turned into one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. This is the Summers brother who came back from revenge. Who is Vulcan? We're about to find out in this video. To start off, Vulcan first appeared in X-Men Deadly Genesis issue 1. Gabriel Summers, aka Vulcan, is the youngest brother of Scott and Alex Summers, who are also known as Cyclops and Havok of the X-Men. Gabriel's origin is very unique, as he wasn't even born yet when a scout ship from the Shi'ar Empire attacked the plane the Summers family was on. Catherine Summers, the mother of Scott, Alex, and Gabriel, was pregnant with Gabriel at the time. After pushing Scott and Alex out of the plane to save them, both Catherine and Chris Summers, her husband and the father of all three, were captured by the Shi'ar. Chris was in prison, while Catherine was forced to become part of Emperor Deken's harem. After Chris managed to escape, he confronted Deken just before the Emperor could fully take advantage of Catherine. However, he couldn't save his wife due to the armed guards capturing him. As a consequence, Deken stabbed Catherine in front of him and ended her life instantly. If you guys and girls think that's dark, Deken also pulled Gabriel out of Catherine's womb. This guy's a full-on savage, but don't worry, karma's gonna come for this guy in two instances. Due to him being days away from being born, with a tad bit of plot armor on the side, Gabriel survived and was put into an incubation chamber that helped him recover and age up to a teenager weeks later. The purpose of this was so Gabriel could be a servant of the Shi'ar Empire. Gabriel was eventually sent to Earth to serve Eric the Red. During his time as a servant, he met a kind old woman named Diandra. She secretly gave him an old book called The Myths of Ancient Rome, which Gabriel read over and over again. Sadly, Diandra's life ended in tragedy when Gabriel's mutant powers activated for the first time, and he accidentally offed her as she was caught in the blast. Soon enough, he ran away and ended up living in the sewers of New York City until the authorities found him. This eventually led him to meeting Moira McTaggart, unaware of the full truth of his past. She helped him gain some control over his powers, and it wasn't long before he met Charles Xavier. At this point, Gabriel had already heard of the X-Men. He knew them as mutant superheroes, even though the general public didn't see them that way. But Gabriel, along with the other mutants he became friends with at Moira's research facility, such as Darwin, Petra, and Sway, knew the truth. Xavier took a special interest into Gabriel after noticing that he's related to Scott Summers. Soon enough, Xavier introduced him to Scott, and the two began training together. Gabriel showed Scott what he was capable of during a training session by redirecting his optic blasts. After training, Scott was genuinely impressed with Gabriel's abilities. Later, Gabriel overheard a conversation between Charles and Moira. Moira thought Charles was pushing Gabriel too hard, while Charles disagreed. He believed Gabriel had the potential to be one of the strongest energy manipulators on Earth. With proper training, he could even be an X-Man if he chose to. Overhearing this, Gabriel was ecstatic and gave himself his own code name, Kid Vulcan. When the original X-Men team was captured by the live island Krakoa, Charles went to Moira to help gather a new team of X-Men for a rescue mission. Gabriel, Sway, Darwin, and Petra all agreed to join. With barely any time for preparation, Charles gave them a crash course in training. To the group, it felt like they'd been training for months, but in reality, only a few hours had passed. Once Charles felt the team was ready, he pulled Gabriel aside and told him the truth, that Scott is his older brother. This gave Gabriel even more motivation to go through with the mission. After arriving on Krakoa, the team fought their way deeper into the island until they found Scott trapped. They freed him and brought him back safely to the jet. Just before heading back to find the rest of the X-Men, Gabriel told Scott that he was his younger brother, leading Scott to realize why Charles brought him to train with Gabriel in the first place. Now, this next part is brutal, as Krakoa was furious and didn't take kindly to Vulcan's team, especially after Gabriel wounded the island when he freed Scott. The island unleashed a volcanic-looking monster to attack them, and they didn't stand a chance. Sway was torn in half and was the first to go meet her ancestors. Right before it was curtains for her, she used the last of her powers to slow down time around Gabriel, Petra, and Darwin, but the monster's sudden energy blast was way too much for them. As Petra was burning alive, she used her powers to make the ground swallow the team up in a desperate attempt to protect them. After they fell into a cavern, Darwin and Gabriel were barely hanging on. In a desperate move, Darwin used his powers to convert himself into pure energy and bonded with Gabriel to keep him alive. Believing Vulcan's team had perished, Scott returned to Xavier with the heartbreaking news. He told Charles that he watched the entire team get obliterated with his own eyes. Overwhelmed with guilt and grief, Scott broke down, blaming himself for letting his own brother die. In an effort to ease his pain, Charles manipulated Scott's memories, erasing any knowledge of Gabriel and implanting the belief that Krakoa had simply let him go, and that Alex was his only brother. Charles then used Cerebro to check the status of both teams. While Jean and the rest of the original X-Men were confirmed alive, Cerebro couldn't detect Vulcan's team at all, seemingly confirming Xavier's worst fears. Stricken with guilt but short on time to rescue the original X-Men, Charles gathered the iconic team we all know and love from giant-sized X-Men, including Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, and Colossus, for the rescue mission. As a result of the mission, Krakoa was launched into outer space by Polaris. The fragment of the island Gabriel was in broke off and remained in orbit near the moon. Gabriel remained in the sort of catatonic state until M-Day, when the Scarlet Witch cast a massive spell that drastically reduced the mutant population. The vast surge of energy from that spell ended up awakening Gabriel from his dormant state. After awakening, Gabriel wanted vengeance as he believed he was forgotten and left for dead by Xavier. He came up with a sinister plan to force Xavier to confess what he's done in front of the X-Men. He lured Rachel Summers, who was Marvel Girl at the time, Wolverine, and Scott to a cave where he ambushed them. They didn't stand a chance against Gabriel. After waking up, his powers had increased, making him beyond an Omega level mutant. Wolverine, as always, took the worst beating. Gabriel obliterated him and roasted him alive. He then took both Scott and Rachel to Moira's now abandoned research facility, where he used his powers to suppress theirs. He played mind games with Scott and deliberately held off on revealing his true identity, while he used Rachel to read the thoughts of certain members of the X-Men, in order to find any leads to where Xavier could be. Around this time, Sean Cassidy, aka Banshee, discovered highly classified information about Gabriel and the rest of his old team from Moira's hidden records. He boarded a flight back to New York to inform the rest of the X-Men, but Gabriel was 2 steps ahead. He sent the Blackbird to intercept the commercial plane Sean was on. Banshee tried to stop the Blackbird, but it was too late. He and everyone on the flight were obliterated in the explosion. Gabriel ended countless lives without remorse, showing just how cold-hearted he had become since his mission on Krakoa. The explosion also led the authorities to suspect the X-Men were behind the attack. However, alongside Sean's body, Wolverine and Nightcrawler were able to recover the briefcase containing their recordings. They brought it back to Beast, who began repairing their damaged footage for review. Gabriel began the next step of his plan by making both Scott and Rachel think they've escaped. He wanted Scott to see where he was held captive and told him that he was his younger brother. Scott couldn't believe what he was hearing. He was in full denial, recalling the false memories Charles had implanted in his mind. Their conversation is interrupted when a Sentinel approaches. Scott tells Rachel to leave and get the rest of the X-Men while Gabriel is occupied. Gabriel quickly takes out the Sentinel and offs the pilot without hesitation. He then tells Scott that Rachel flying away is actually part of his plan to draw a bigger audience for Xavier's confession and to lure Xavier out of hiding. He then took Scott with him to Muir Island, where he coldly admitted to offing Banshee. And to add salt to the wound, Gabriel told Scott that Banshee died like a true X-Man. He explained that orchestrating the recent events was necessary to draw Xavier out of hiding. Scott, filled with rage, shouted that Gabriel can never be his brother after everything he had done. Charles soon appears in front of them, and Scott is shocked to learn that Charles knows Gabriel. The X-Men arrive on the scene shortly after, giving Gabriel the audience he needs for Charles to confess. There's one problem though. Charles lost his powers after M-Day, so Rachel creates a psychic link between Charles and Gabriel, allowing everyone to see the truth through their memories. After witnessing what happened to Vulcan's team during the rescue mission on Krakoa years ago, Havok speaks up, stunned to learn he has a younger brother. This prompts Xavier to explain Gabriel's origin, including how Deccan was the main reason his mother died, and how Gabriel eventually ended up on Earth. Hearing all this is a revelation for Gabriel. He always suspected aliens were involved in his past, but never to this extent. Charles pleads with Gabriel, telling him that he's already lived through a tragic past. He doesn't need to keep going down the dark path he's on, but Gabriel doesn't listen. All Charles has done, in Gabriel's eyes, is give him someone else to hate. Gabriel demands that Charles show everyone the rest of what happened to his team on Krakoa. Charles, still carrying the weight of his shame, reveals everything else, from how he manipulated Scott's memories, to how he staged the island to appear sentient during the final battle with the X-Men. Once the truth is fully out in the open, Gabriel has one final question. How is he still alive? Rachel answers that question, and we already went over this a few minutes ago, so here's the quick version. Sway and Petra used their powers in their last moments, and Darwin fused with Gabriel to keep him alive. On the surface, Vulcan seemed like the last survivor on his team, but Rachel reveals that Darwin is still alive, bonded inside of him. She uses her powers to separate them, leaving Gabriel dazed. Now here's the part I have a real problem with, and that's Scott and Alex join the rest of the X-Men in fighting Gabriel while he's down, even if it means offing him. He's their brother, and yet they still view him as too dangerous to be left alive. I know you offed a lot of people and he has to be stopped, but there's not even a sign of them feeling any conviction for attacking their little brother after they just found out they're related. They just go all in like, yeah, you gotta go. I don't know, it would have been more compelling to see some emotional conflict there between Scott, Alex, and Gabriel. It is what it is. Even with all their combined power, Gabriel wipes the floor with the X-Men anyway. You can see the anger and disappointment in his face. He's heartbroken by what the X-Men have become. Before leaving Earth's orbit, it, he looks at Scott and tells him that he's not his brother. From there, he sets off on a new path of vengeance, one that's aimed directly at Daken for offing his mother. During his travels, Gabriel encounters his first Shi'ar vessel and blows it up just like that. He interrogates the only survivor left and learns that even at his speed, it would take years to reach the Shi'ar homeworld. To get there faster, he needs to use the Stargate, but the only way to access one is with the Shi'ar ship, forcing Gabriel to adjust his plans. When he mentions getting revenge on Daken, the survivor informs him that Daken has been in a coma for years, ever since his battle with the X-Men and the Starjammers. Upon hearing this, Gabriel obliterates the survivor and redirects his rage towards Lilandra, the current empress of the Shi'ar Empire, and the Shi'ar people themselves. Soon enough, Gabriel found 3 Shi'ar warships. He destroyed 2 of them and took over the 3rd warship as his new leader. As soon as he takes control of the vessel, his first few commands are to destroy the Stargates, so the X-Men can't follow him, gather intel on Lilandra and her relatives, which is how he first learns about Deathbird, and get a crash course on the Shi'ar Empire history. A few days pass, and Vulcan destroys enough Stargates to get the attention of the Imperial Guard, led by Gladiator. Gabriel gives them a hard time in their fight, until Gladiator rushes in, scratches out his left eye, and knocks him out before taking him into custody. Due to how dangerous he is, Gabriel was sent to the highest security prison in the Shi'ar Empire. A neural dampener was attached around his neck to dull his senses and powers, and his damaged left eye was replaced with a synthetic one. The exact amount of time he spent in prison is unknown, but during that time, a hallucination of his younger self tormented him constantly. Everything seemed lost for Gabriel, until a mysterious figure freed him. This person was a member of the Secret Order, a group of Shi'ar loyalists who believed the original Shi'ar Empire will rise again. The prison guards were quickly alerted and shot the Secret Order member, leaving Gabriel to fend for himself. He had no problem taking out the guards and off them without hesitation. Following the path the Secret Order member mentioned, Gabriel eventually found and freed Deathbird from her imprisonment. The 2 of them worked together to escape and went on a warpath. Amid the constant fighting and destruction, they eventually fell in love, and Gabriel's plan for revenge was set aside, tamed for now by Deathbird. When they finally reached Daken's chambers, they found him still in the coma. It would have taken an unknown amount of time for Daken to recover naturally, but Gabriel used his powers to awaken him for Deathbird, who preferred Daken to reclaim rule over the Shi'ar Empire instead of Lilandra. Besides, it wouldn't have satisfied him to off Daken while he was unconscious anyway. Deathbird is amazed at what she just witnessed and wraps her arms around Gabriel, but he tells her that he still plans to eventually get his revenge on Daken. Deathbird replies that she'll tame those urges and urges him to let the past stay in the past. Nah, I'm with Gabriel on this one. You can't just let something like that slide. With Daken back, the Secret Order was ready to rebel against the current Shi'ar Empire. Gabriel helped them, but he was still conflicted, torn between his desire to off Daken and his love for Deathbird. As the days passed, Daken asks to speak with Gabriel privately. Even though he shows no remorse of offing Catherine Summers all those years ago, Daken offers Gabriel a reward for waking him up and aiding the Secret Order. Now that he's regained power, Daken invokes an arcane Shi'ar law to arrange the marriage between Gabriel and Deathbird. According to this law, any child born in the High Palace of Chandelier may ascend to royalty. While this law wasn't originally meant for someone like Gabriel, Daken sees an opportunity. Deathbird loves him, and he's incredibly powerful, so Daken wants Gabriel to officially join the Imperium through marriage. When Xavier and Darwin were captured by the Shi'ar, Daken left Darwin's fate in Gabriel's hands. And let's just say their little reunion didn't go well. Darwin was disgusted by everything Gabriel had done back on Earth, but Gabriel didn't care. He smugly made Darwin his best man for his wedding and revealed that Xavier was scheduled for a public offing as part of the after party. That offing, however, will be interrupted when Starjammers, the X-Men, and Lilandra's armada launch an all-out assault to end Daken's rule over the Shi'ar Empire. In the chaos of battle, Gabriel refused to lose a shot at revenge. He threw Xavier in the M'Kron crystal, determined to make him suffer a fate similar to what he endured back on Krakoa. Darwin followed Xavier into the crystal, prompting Gabriel to basically say, "Alright, if you want to die too, Darwin, be my guest." With that, Gabriel shifted his focus to Daken, who was holding Lilandra by the neck. Without hesitation, Gabriel blasted Daken in the back, still clinging to the massive grudge he held against him. Daken, now gripped with fear, stood no chance as Gabriel unleashed his full power and obliterated him. With Daken dead at his feet, Gabriel declared himself the new ruler of the Shi'ar Empire, Emperor Vulcan. As his first act as emperor, Gabriel planned to obliterate Lilandra, but Chris Summers, also known as Corsair, intervened and tried to stop him. As his father, Chris tells Gabriel to listen to him, but Gabriel didn't hesitate. He offed him on the spot, blaming Chris for being a failure who couldn't save him or Catherine all those years ago. Seeing what Gabriel did enraged Alex beyond belief. He unleashed everything he had in an attempt to stop Gabriel, but it wasn't enough. Gabriel was just too powerful. Fortunately, Gabriel was wearing armor made of metal, and Polaris took advantage of that by crushing it with her powers, crushing him in the process. This gave Alex the opening he needed to land a few punches on his little brother. Gabriel tried to retaliate and blast Polaris, but Alex threw himself in the way of the attack to shield her. Just when it looked like they might finally bring Gabriel down, Deathbird stepped in and stopped Polaris and escaped with Gabriel and the rest of their forces. Ever since Gabriel declared himself Emperor, Alex took command of the Starjammers and began working alongside Lilandra and her forces to bring an end to Gabriel's reign. Many within the Shi'ar Empire also viewed Gabriel as a false emperor, further fueling the resistance against them. When Gabriel gets notified of the Starjammers' assault on Feather's Edge, he took the chance to attack them, but in the midst of the Civil War, a new threat emerged, a powerful alien race known as the Shi'ar Tal, with a deep grudge against the Shi'ar for nearly wiping out their people. The Shi'ar Tal launched a massive assault by transporting a star to destroy Feather's Edge, proving how powerful they are. This forced both sides, which are Gabriel's empire and the resistance, to call a temporary ceasefire and unite against the Shi'ar Tal. Their goal was to stop the Shi'ar Tal's ultimate weapon, known as the Finality. Alex and Gabriel led an all-out assault on the Elder of the Shi'ar Tal, and during the battle, Gabriel discovered that the Elder's power source was directly linked to the rest of the Shi'ar Tal. Without hesitation, he absorbed that power for himself, leaving the Shi'ar Tal helpless. Now holding the advantage, Gabriel betrayed the Starjammers and the resistance. He blasted Alex into a nearby star, and with full control of the Finality, he ordered it to be fired on the Shi'ar Tal, but Alex soon returned, more powerful than ever after absorbing massive amounts of energy. He easily defeated Gabriel in combat, but Gabriel had a backup plan. He held members of the Starjammers at gunpoint, forcing Alex to surrender. Despite everything, Gabriel's victory earned him even more respect from the Shi'ar. In their eyes, he now acted like a true Shi'ar. Time passed, and Gabriel's power only grew through conquering new worlds, but even that wasn't enough for him. He wanted Alex to submit to him above everything else, but he refused, driving Gabriel even more mad than usual. Gabriel tried to threaten him, but it didn't work on Alex. When he heard news of another attack caused by Rachel Grey, Gabriel created a new Imperial Guard filled with the most ruthless criminals and threats to the Shi'ar Empire, called the Praetorians. He also had to meet the envoys of the Galactic Council due to his recent actions of conquering other worlds. It violates Lilandra's agreements with the Council, but Gabriel didn't want to hear any of it. He obliterated the envoys and dissolved the Shi'ar's relationship with the Council. This even caught Deathbird off guard, as she couldn't fully agree with Gabriel severing the relationship with the Galactic Council. It would mean the Shi'ar going to war against the rest of the universe. The Starjammers soon broke free from Shi'ar custody and regrouped. They fought the Praetorians, and Gabriel, along with the Imperial Guard and Deathbird, teleported into the fight, telling Alex that this is where the Starjammers die. Gabriel didn't expect what was coming from him though, as a powerful being called a Hoden crashed into the fight. Alex absorbed all the Hoden's energy and easily overpowered Gabriel. Gabriel was losing badly, and Deathbird was severely wounded after Lilandra stabbed her through the gut. After Lilandra teleported the Starjammers out of the fight, Gabriel got Deathbird medical attention, and he would soon set his sights on Black Bolt and the rest of the Inhumans who were on the Kree homeworld. When he heard about Ronan the Accuser's wedding, he sent the Imperial Guard to disrupt the wedding, and it turned into a massacre, sparking a war between him and the Inhumans. His army captured Lilandra, and Gabriel was about to offer until he was convinced to let her live, as her death would trigger a civil war among the Shi'ar. That warning didn't matter in the end though, as Lilandra was off to the next issue of the War of the Kings arc, igniting a Shi'ar civil war just as predicted. Despite warnings from a member of the fraternity of Raptors to make peace and end the war with the Inhumans, Gabriel ignored their advice and chose to confront Black Bolt directly. Upon arriving at the Inhumans base, he found Black Bolt preparing the Terrigen bomb. Believing the bomb was meant to annihilate his empire, Gabriel launched a brutal and bloody fight between the two kings. What followed was an absolutely epic moment. Gabriel pushed Black Bolt to his absolute limit, forcing the King of the Inhumans to unleash his devastating voice at point-blank range. It was crazy as hell. Gabriel was reduced to nothing but flesh, yet somehow he kept fighting. The battle raged on until the Terrigen bomb detonated, tearing a hole through space and time called the Fault. Everyone thought both warriors perished in the explosion, and with no ruler left for the Shi'ar Empire, Gladiator is elected as the new emperor. He makes peace with the Inhumans, officially bringing the war to an end. Time passes, and it's eventually revealed that Gabriel survives the explosion, but remains trapped within the Fault. He's soon taken in by 3 progenitors, who perform a vivisection on him. They study his physiology to determine whether he could be of use. Although they originally wanted Black Bolt too, he's out of their reach, so they just settle for Gabriel. The progenitors discover a fire burning deep within him, and they conclude that his mind and body are too broken to fully repair, but that doesn't stop them from finding a way to use them for their own purposes. They manipulate his mind, separating everything good within him from his broken and corrupt self. All the darkness, his rage, hatred, and pain is locked away deep within his psyche. Once the progenitors finish, they send Gabriel back to his universe with all memory of the experience completely erased. After the Krakoa Arc started, Gabriel returns to Earth and is welcomed into the Summers household, located on the moon. He now lives alongside Scott, Alex, Jean Grey, Rachel, who goes by the name Prestige at this point, Nathan, also known as Cable, and Logan. However, his mind is still messed up. To cope with his overwhelming sadness, Gabriel creates energy constructs of Sway and Petra, who are still dead at this point. And if you guys and girls are wondering why they haven't been brought back to life, even though the Five can resurrect nearly every other mutant, it's because their deaths surpass even Cerebro's ability to restore them. Gabriel spends most of his time drinking with these illusions, and the rest of the Summers family plays along, thinking it might help his mind slowly begin to heal. At one point, Scott and Alex find him passed out from drinking too much. Scott asks if he's been having the bad dreams again, and Gabriel quietly confirms it. These nightmares are vivid flashbacks, visions of what the progenitors did to him while he was trapped in the vault. As the dreams worsen over time, Gabriel eventually leaves the Summers house to clear his head. During his walk, he stumbles upon a Captivity Empire outpost preparing to strike Earth. He tries to reason with them, hoping to prevent more destruction, but the Captivity lash out and start tampering with his mind, triggering his buried memories of the fault. Everything comes rushing back. The experiments, the manipulation, the trauma, his old personality resurfaces, and in a violent explosion of rage and pain, Gabriel completely wipes out the outpost. Sway and Petra soon find Gabriel and what's left of the outpost. He tells them he could break the moon in half if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to be that person. The illusions comfort him, and together, they return to the Summers house. However, Gabriel's violent outburst triggers a Captivity invasion, but that threat is quickly dealt with, so we're going to skip ahead. Later on, during a battle between the Sword Bearers of Krakoa and the Sword Bearers of Arakko, Gabriel joins the fight, and afterwards, he's among the Omega-level mutants who help terraform Mars to establish the new home for Arakko. As time passes, Gabriel's mental state continues to deteriorate, and he gradually reverts back to his old self. Both Charles and Scott try to help him, informing him that the real Sway and Petra have been brought back to life thanks to the efforts of the Scarlet Witch, but Gabriel refuses to believe them. He lashes out violently, offing everyone around him, and destroying the Summers house after Charles attempts to use his telepathy to help him see the truth. Following this outburst, Gabriel is officially cast out of the Summers household. Gabriel then makes his way to Arakko, and unsurprisingly, starts causing trouble almost immediately at the Red Lagoon, a bar owned by none other than Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot. Gabriel threatens some visiting Shi'ar citizens and demands they call him king. That is until Roberto steps in. A fight breaks out, and while Roberto dodges Gabriel's attacks at first, Gabriel eventually lands a hit. That's when John Proudstar, aka Thunderbird, steps in, and this man does not play around. Thunderbird clocks Gabriel in the jaw and slams an entire table on his head, giving him the beatdown he had coming for a while. Unfortunately, the brawl is cut short when Cable and Abigail Brand walk into the bar. Cable doesn't waste time. He uses telepathy to knock Gabriel out cold and takes him away, since, let's be honest, he has nowhere else to go. Think about it. He doesn't want to be on Krakoa. We saw how that turned out earlier. He's no longer Emperor of the Shi'ar, so he can't go back without sparking some beef with someone. He's been kicked out of the Summers household, and now he's officially a threat to the people of Arakko after that stunt he just pulled at Roberto's bar. At this point, Gabriel better be grateful someone's willing to take him in at all, which leads us to Abigail Brand's proposition. She offers him a spot on her team called X-Men Red, the mutant defenders of Mars, led by Cable. And let me tell y'all this, Gabriel didn't even last 3 issues on his team. The first mission he went on, total disaster. Storm and the Brotherhood of Arakko pulled up, and in no time, Storm turned Gabriel into a popsicle. Gabriel lost his temper and was this close to starting a fight, until Storm shut him down immediately. She straight up disrespected him by grabbing him by the throat and delivering one of her coldest lines ever. "You manipulate energy, so do I. You're an Omega level mutant, so am I. This is not a battle of mutant weapons. This is a battle of will. Feel the power around us, building from one to the other, seeking a weakness, a break in our armor, a flaw. You speak of fire burning within you, a flame dancing in the wind. Inside me, child, is the hurricane." Man, right after that line, Storm lit Gabriel's ass up. And for all the true diehard X-Men fans out there, don't y'all hate how other media always nerf Storm's powers? The public sees her as just okay, but they have no idea how much of a total threat she can be when she really wants to go off. Afterwards, Gabriel is healed at the Sword Station, and Abigail apologizes, admitting she didn't realize his full potential. Magneto. She then gives Gabriel another assignment and manipulates him into fighting Tarn the Uncaring in the Great Ring. She tells him that if he defeats Tarn, the locals will speak his name the same way they do Storm's. Gabriel immediately jumps at the opportunity, unaware that Abigail is playing on his ego. He even gives Tarn a nickname, Tarn the Dead, but little does Gabriel know, when their powers clash, they cancel each other out, forcing them into a straight up fist fight, and that's where it all goes downhill, for Gabriel that is. Tarn decks Gabriel, hitting him with brutal, bone-shattering blows until he offs him in the ring. Soon enough, Scott, Alex, Xavier, and the Five gather to resurrect Gabriel, and if you're wondering why, it's because Magneto, along with several other mutants, died during the Avengers vs. X-Men vs. Eternals crossover event, and Magneto chose to stay dead. Scott argues they need more powerhouses on their side, and like Alex, I don't really agree with bringing Gabriel back just for that. The very next page proves my point. Gabriel wakes up reckless and fully powered up. He immediately heads to the diplomatic zone to reclaim the throne as Emperor of the Shi'ar. Even though he takes out Gladiator and Nova, his attempt to stop when Sunspot appears, straight up aura farming, casually sitting on a flaming throne, daring Gabriel to fight him even though he knows Gabriel will win. Gabriel doesn't take the bait though. He realizes that Roberto's just a distraction and heads to the Autumn Palace to challenge Storm instead. But this man never learns. Storm little bros him again, calling him Little King. She tells Gabriel to make the first move, and he does, by blowing up the entire palace. Their fight continues as Gabriel blasts Storm and mocks her, thinking she's powerless without the weather. But this is Storm we're talking about. She outsmarts him once again, and the rest of the Brotherhood arrive to shut him down and seal him away. As of now, Gabriel hasn't been seen since then, so we're gonna move on to his skills and abilities. And to start off, he can manipulate all known energy types to aid himself, especially in the fight, including absorb, control, detect, and project energy. He has experience in leadership and strategy from his time as Emperor of the Shi'ar. He can create energy constructs such as weapons, restraints, and illusions. He has faster healing, but not to the point he can regenerate lost body parts, such as his eye, and he couldn't heal his scar. He has psionic energy manipulation, including resistance to psionic attacks. He has enhanced durability, enhanced strength. He can fly at hypersonic speed. He can suppress, control, and negate an opponent's powers if he's close to them and accesses their power source, or the electrical currents within their brain. He has combat training due to being trained by Xavier and learning certain combat tactics during his time with the Shi'ar. He can sustain himself in harsh environments by generating energy fields and using energy he absorbed to maintain his body. Moving on to weaknesses, Gabriel is mentally unstable due to years of trauma and his mind being altered on more than one occasion. There's a limit to how much energy he can absorb. He's very arrogant that leads him to underestimate opponents, overextend his powers, and alienate allies. Moving off to nerd facts, Gabriel's codename Vulcan was inspired by the Roman god of fire, taken from the ancient mythology book he read over and over again. Gabriel and Deathbird have a child together, but she refused to tell Gabriel the child's location. She sent their son away to a safe place where he could be raised without the influence of both of them, and away from the rest of the Shi'ar. After Magneto stepped down from the Quiet Council, Gabriel was one of the candidates considered to fill his seat. However, he lost when Hope Summers won the vote and claimed the position instead. Moving on to personal thoughts, I don't like Gabriel at all, especially on how he treats his own family. Think of a list of the most entitled and spoiled people you know, and Gabriel would top that list due to him having the mindset of a spoiled and entitled kid within an adult body. He doesn't care about anything besides himself. It makes me appreciate Havok and Storm for humbling Gabriel and basically giving him the message, little boy, sit down, you don't got it like that. I was thinking about this while making the video and kept going back and forth on it, but I ended up comparing Gabriel to Jason Todd. Gabriel is like Jason if he never forgave Batman, never came back to the Bat family, and fully embraced being more of a villain than a hero. And just to be clear, I'm talking about Jason at his core, not the back and forth character regressions and nonsense some writers put him through with Batman. That's how I see him. He's way too unstable and dangerous to be left unchecked. He's one of those people that you just don't bring to a gathering, because sooner or later, he's gonna F something up, due to him easily taking certain things the wrong way and making it impersonal. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know y'all had at least one person like that in your lifetime. But besides all that, if you're entertained, thought it was educational, like what I said or all the above, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment, and turn on post notifications, especially if you're a new viewer. If you want to support the channel even more, my links will be down in the description box below, and I'll talk to you guys and girls later. Peace.